Hey there, Patrick again. Since this whole self isolation thing started, I've noticed I've been looking at the museum's artwork in a completely different light. For instance, when I would look at Guy Pene DuBois' studio window, featured in the museum's permanent collection, I would see a woman sitting on the windowsill, gazing out the window, completely lost in thought. But now when I look at this painting, well, I see a woman who, like all of us, is practicing self isolation. She's sitting there, looking out the window, longing for an end to those Zoom meetings and dreaming of vacation. She can't wait for it to be over. I can't wait for it to be over. First thing I'm going to do when it's over is I'm going to frolic. I've never frolicked before. Sounds kind of nice. I'm going to frolic in a field full of wildflowers. That can't come soon enough, right? But in the meantime, this painting also has me thinking about one of America's most infamous cases of quarantining. You know what I could go for right now? Some peach Melba. Fresh peaches, vanilla ice cream, raspberry drizzle. It doesn't get much better than that, right? Sign me up. It's no secret that I love ice cream. Now please stick with me. I promise this is going somewhere. Peach Melba just happened to be a specialty of Mary Mallon, an Irish immigrant and longtime domestic worker who often cooked for wealthy families in New York City. In 1906-1907, Mallon was hired by a wealthy banker to cook for his family while they were staying at Oyster Bay on New York's Long Island. Within weeks of her hiring, 6 of the 11 inhabitants of the home came down with typhoid fever, caused by the bacteria Salmonella typhi, which is spread through contaminated water or food. George Soper, a sanitary engineer, was hired to find the culprit behind this particular outbreak. And early on in his investigation, Soper came to the conclusion that the bacteria was spread through a contaminated food source rather than a water source. Now, with that in mind, nearly all the food served had been cooked at temperatures that would have killed off that bacteria. But you know what's not cooked? That's right, peach Melba. Suspecting that Mallon was a healthy carrier of typhi, Soper investigated Mallon's work history and found that 7 of the 8 families that she previously worked for experienced the typhoid fever outbreak. Armed with that, Soper approached Mallon and, without any proper context or explanation, asked Mallon for a sample of not only blood, but urine and feces. Now, you can imagine how she reacted. She actually chased him off with a carving fork. Undeterred, Soper enlisted the help of the local police, and they forcibly brought Mallon in for testing. Well, it turned out Soper's hunch was correct. Mallon was the culprit. She was an asymptomatic carrier, and she was immediately quarantined to North Brother Island, where she lived in isolation for 3 years. So after 3 years of failed lawsuits and petitions to leave the island, Mallon was offered a deal. Mary, you can leave this island on one condition. You can't cook for anyone. And Mary says, I'll take that deal. I'm in all the way. And she was soon back in New York City, where she found employment as a laundress. Fast forward 5 years. Several patients at a maternity hospital come down with typhoid fever. Just so happened that Mallon, under an assumed name, was working at that hospital as a cook. As it turns out, laundry doesn't pay the bills. And she soon found herself back on North Brother Island, where she spent the remainder of her life in isolation. Nearly 23 years. In total, Mallon, dubbed Typhoid Mary by the press, spent nearly 30 years in quarantine. It's believed that she was responsible for 51 cases of typhoid fever and 3 deaths. Mallon, who never showed symptoms or felt unwell, likely didn't have the education to understand how the bacteria was spread, nor was it likely ever properly explained to her in a way that she could understand it. And while she was not the only healthy carrier identified, she was the only healthy carrier forced into isolation, though it's unclear as to why. Well, that makes me want to go wash my hands. So until next time, be safe, be kind, and good luck.